There are cars driving around with over 300,000 miles on them, and they run better than some cars with only 60,000. The engines are clean. The transmissions shift like butter. The interiors look showroom fresh. And the people driving them? They're not spending a fortune at the dealership. They're not mechanics. They're not car geniuses. They just know something that 95% of drivers don't. There are 12 hidden habits, small, almost invisible things, that separate the people who replace their car every 5 years from the people who drive the same car for 20. And today, I'm going to walk you through every single one. Stick around for habit number 7, because that one habit alone can add 80,000 miles to your engine life. And almost nobody does it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about cars, we talk about money, and we talk about the things that dealerships and manufacturers don't really want you to know. Because a car that lasts 300,000 miles is a car that doesn't need to be replaced. And replacing cars is where the real money's made, not for you, but for them. Today's video is something I've been building for a while. I've interviewed long-haul truck drivers, classic car restorers, automotive engineers, and everyday people who've crossed the 300,000 milestone with their personal vehicles. And over again, certain habits kept coming up. These aren't things you'll find in your owner's manual. These aren't the basics like change your oil. These are the deeper, almost invisible habits that compound over time and make a massive difference. By the end of this video, you'll have a complete playbook to treat your car in a way that could genuinely double its lifespan. Habit number 12. They warm up the engine, but not how you think. Here's one of the biggest myths in car culture. You need to let your car sit and idle for 5, 10, sometimes even 15 minutes before driving in the morning. That was true in the 1980s. Modern fuel-injected engines? That advice is actually wrong, and it can hurt your car. Here's the real truth. The fastest way to warm up a modern engine is to drive it gently. When you idle for too long, you're letting the engine run rich, meaning excess fuel gets into the combustion chamber, washes down the cylinder walls, and actually strips away the thin film of oil that protects your pistons and rings. The people who drive high-mileage cars know this. You start the car, give it about 30 to 60 seconds, just enough for oil to circulate, and then you drive. But you drive gently for the first 3 to 5 minutes. No hard acceleration, no high RPMs. You treat it like it just woke up, because it did. This habit alone reduces wear on your engine's most critical internal components during the most vulnerable phase of every single drive. Every morning you do this right, you're giving your engine a longer life. Habit number 11. They never let the fuel tank drop below a quarter. This one sounds simple. It sounds almost too simple to matter. But hear me out, because there's real science behind this. Your car's fuel pump sits inside your gas tank. And in most vehicles, it's cooled and lubricated by the fuel surrounding it. When you constantly run your tank down to fumes, that fuel pump is working hard, surrounded by air instead of fuel, running hot. Over time, this causes the pump to wear out prematurely. Fuel pump replacements can run anywhere from $400 to $1,200 depending on your vehicle. And that's not even the worst part. At the bottom of your gas tank, sediment collects over time. Dirt, rust particles, tiny debris. When you run your tank very low, your fuel pump starts pulling from the very bottom, sucking up that sediment and pushing it through your fuel system, through your fuel filter, through your injectors. Clogged fuel injectors are expensive. Dirty fuel systems cause rough idling, poor fuel economy, and long-term engine damage. People with 300,000-mile cars almost universally keep their tanks above a quarter. Some won't even let it drop below half. It's a small habit, it costs you nothing extra over a year, and it protects a surprisingly large number of critical systems. Habit number 10. They take their car on the highway at least once a week. If you only drive short trips, school runs, grocery store, 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, your car is actually suffering, and most city drivers have no idea this is happening. Here's the problem. Every time you start your car, a tiny amount of moisture condenses inside the engine. Under normal circumstances, this moisture evaporates once the engine reaches full operating temperature. But on short trips, the engine never fully heats up. that moisture stays trapped. Over time, it mixes with oil, creating a nasty sludge, a milky, gunky contamination that clogs oil passages, reduces lubrication, and slowly destroys your engine from the inside. Short trips also don't fully charge your battery, they don't burn off carbon deposits in the combustion chamber, and they don't allow the exhaust system to burn off moisture properly, leading to premature rust in your exhaust pipes. The fix? At least once a week, take your car on a highway drive of at least 20 to 30 minutes. Let it fully heat up. Let everything breathe. Let the engine run at a steady, comfortable RPM. This one habit flushes out moisture, burns off deposits, keeps the battery healthy, and keeps the entire system running like it was designed to. People who work from home and barely drive, they need this habit more than anyone else. Habit number 9. They listen to their car. Really listen. High-mileage car owners develop what I call car ears. They know what their vehicle sounds like when it's healthy, and the moment something changes, a new rattle, a slightly different tone from the engine, a subtle vibration in the steering wheel, they notice it immediately. This matters because almost every major, expensive car problem starts as a small, cheap, easy-to-fix issue. A small knock in the engine that gets ignored for 3,000 miles turns into catastrophic rod-bearing failure. A subtle grinding when braking that gets dismissed becomes a rotor replacement instead of just a brake pad swap. The habit is simple. Once a week, turn off the radio and just drive in silence for a few minutes. Listen. Feel the steering wheel. Notice how the car shifts, how it idles at a red light, how it responds to acceleration. If something feels different, you don't panic, but you pay attention. You Google it. You ask someone. You get it checked before it becomes a $2,000 problem. The most expensive words in car ownership are, "Oh, that noise has been there for a while. I just ignored it." Habit number 8. They never skip the coolant flush. Here's a service that is almost criminally overlooked. People are religious about oil changes, and they should be, but coolant. Most people have no idea their coolant even needs to be changed. They think it just lives in there forever. It doesn't. Coolant, the green or orange fluid in your radiator, does two jobs. It regulates your engine temperature and it prevents corrosion inside your cooling system. But over time, coolant degrades. It becomes acidic. And when coolant turns acidic, it starts eating away at your radiator, your water pump, your heater core, and the metal components throughout your cooling system. A coolant flush costs between $80 and $150. A water pump replacement costs $400 to $800. A heater core replacement can cost over $1,000, largely because of labor. It's buried deep inside the dashboard on most vehicles. A radiator replacement? $500 to $1,200. Every single one of those expensive repairs is caused, at least in part, by neglected coolant. People who reach 300,000 miles flush their coolant on schedule, typically every 30,000 miles or every 5 years, but always check your specific manufacturer's recommendation. This one service, consistently done, can prevent thousands of dollars in cooling system repairs. Habit number 7, they protect the transmission like it's the heart of the car. If the engine is the muscles of your car, the transmission is the heart. And transmission failure is one of the most devastating, expensive things that can happen to a vehicle. A transmission replacement can cost anywhere from $2,500 to $8,000. In many cases, it's more than the car is worth. And yet most people completely ignore their transmission until it starts slipping, jerking, or refusing to shift. Here's what the 300,000-mile club does differently. First, they change their transmission fluid. Automatic transmission fluid, ATF, degrades over time and loses its ability to lubricate and cool the internal components. Most manufacturers recommend a transmission fluid change every 30,000 to 60,000 miles, but many people go 150,000 miles or more without touching it. By then, the damage is already being done. Second, they're gentle on the transmission during cold starts. Just like the engine, the transmission needs time to warm up. Avoid aggressive acceleration for the first few minutes of driving. Third, and this one is critical for automatic transmission owners, They never put the car in drive or reverse while the vehicle is still rolling, even slightly. That grinding, jerking motion of forcing a direction change while moving puts enormous stress on transmission components. Treat your transmission with care, change the fluid regularly, and it will last the life of the vehicle. Habit number 6. They use the right oil and change it before it goes bad. Most people treat oil changes like a checkbox. Oh, it's been 5,000 miles. Time for an oil change. And while that's better than nothing, the people who get 300,000 miles out of their cars are thinking about oil completely differently. There are 3 things they do that most drivers don't. 1. They use the oil their engine was designed for, not whatever's on sale. Your owner's manual specifies a viscosity, something like 5W30 or 0W20. That number isn't a suggestion, it's engineering. Your engine's oil passages, tolerances, and clearances were designed around that specific viscosity. Using the wrong oil, even a slightly thicker oil, can mean inadequate lubrication at critical moments, especially during cold starts when oil needs to flow quickly to protect components before wear occurs. 2. They think about oil condition, not just mileage. A lot of people don't know this, but oil degrades faster under certain conditions. Lots of short trips, extreme heat, dusty environments, towing heavy loads. If you're doing a lot of city driving with short trips, your oil is degrading faster than the mileage counter suggests. High mileage drivers often check their oil's condition, the color, the consistency, between changes rather than just trusting a number. 3. They use full synthetic, and they've done the math. Full synthetic oil costs more per change, often $20 to $40 more than conventional, but it lasts significantly longer, provides better high-temperature protection, flows more easily in cold temperatures, and reduces engine wear across the board. Over 300,000 miles, the difference between an engine that was consistently fed good synthetic oil and one that got whatever was cheapest is visible. The synthetic-fed engine has clean internals, minimal sludge, and tight tolerances. The other engine looks like a science experiment gone wrong. Oil is the single most impactful maintenance item on any vehicle. The people who hit 300,000 miles are obsessive about getting it right. Habit number 5, they never ignore warning lights, not even for a day. Here's a scenario that plays out thousands of times every single day. A warning light comes on. The driver thinks, I'll get that checked this weekend. The weekend comes and goes, then it's next week, then it's next month. The car still runs. So it probably isn't that serious, right? Wrong. The check engine light alone can represent over 1,000 different fault codes. Some of them are minor. Some of them are your engine quietly destroying itself every time you drive. Without reading the code, you have no idea which situation you're in. But more importantly, the people who drive 300,000-mile cars have a zero-tolerance policy for warning lights. Not because they panic, but because they understand that a warning light is their car communicating. And ignoring what your car is trying to tell you is always more expensive than listening. A basic OBD2 scanner, the device that reads check engine codes, costs about $25 on Amazon. Many auto parts stores will read them for free. The habit is simple. Warning light on today, address today. Even if it's just pulling up the code so you know what you're dealing with. Habit number 4. They keep the undercarriage clean, especially in winter. The top of your car is the part everyone sees. The undercarriage is the part that actually determines whether your car survives. Road salt, used to melt ice in cold climates, is one of the most destructive forces a vehicle can face. It clings to the metal frame, the brake lines, the fuel lines, the exhaust system, and every exposed bolt and bracket underneath your car. And it causes rust. Not the surface rust you can see on a door panel. Deep, structural rust that can literally compromise the safety and integrity of the vehicle. Brake line failure, fuel line corrosion, rotted subframe. These are the things that end cars in cold climates. And the people who live in those climates and still reach 300,000 miles, they wash the undercarriage religiously through winter. After every significant snow event or salted road exposure, they run through a car wash with an undercarriage spray cycle. Some of them do it weekly during winter months. It sounds excessive. It's not. It's the difference between a car that structurally lasts 300,000 miles and one that's mechanically fine but physically unsafe to drive at 120,000. If you live in a salt belt state, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, any of the northern states, this habit is not optional. It is survival. And beyond winter, keeping the undercarriage free of caked mud, debris, and moisture year-round prevents rust development, keeps heat shields and exhaust components from corroding, and makes it easier to spot leaks or developing problems when you do an inspection. Habit number 3, they maintain tire pressure with religious consistency. Tires are the only part of your car actually touching the road. And yet tire pressure is one of the most neglected maintenance items in existence. Studies have shown that a huge percentage of vehicles on the road right now are driving on tires that are underinflated by 5 psi or more. And most of those drivers have no idea. Underinflated tires create more rolling resistance, which means your engine works harder, burns more fuel, and experiences more strain for every single mile you drive. Over 300,000 miles, that adds up to an enormous amount of cumulative stress that a properly inflated tire would have eliminated. Underinflated tires also overheat more easily, especially at highway speeds, and heat is the primary cause of tire blowouts. A blowout at highway speed isn't just expensive, it's dangerous. And uneven tire pressure, where front tires are properly inflated but rear tires are low, or one side is different from the other, causes uneven wear that destroys tires prematurely and creates alignment and suspension stress. The habit, check tire pressure once a month. Every month. Takes 3 minutes. Use a quality gauge. The one at the gas station is often inaccurate. Check when the tires are cold before you've driven more than a mile or two for an accurate reading. Reference your driver's door jam sticker for the correct PSI, not the number on the tire itself, which is the maximum, not the recommended. This habit saves tires, saves fuel, reduces engine strain, and keeps you safe. Habit number 2, they take care of the small seals and gaskets. This habit is invisible to most people, and it's one of the most powerful ones on this list. Seals and gaskets are everywhere in your car. They're in the engine, keeping oil and coolant where they belong. They're around your doors, windows, and trunk, keeping weather and moisture out of the cabin. They're in the transmission, the power steering system, and the differential. And here's the thing about seals. When they're healthy, you never think about them. When they start to go, even a tiny minor leak, the consequences compound quietly until you have a major problem. An engine that's slowly losing a quart of oil every 1,000 miles through a valve cover gasket might not set off any warning lights, but the oil level is dropping between changes. And if an owner isn't checking it regularly, that engine might be running low by 3,000 miles into a 5,000-mile oil change interval. Low oil means higher temperatures, more friction, more wear, every single day. The habit of people who reach 300,000 miles, they regularly inspect their car for leaks. They look at where the car was parked. Is there a drip of oil, coolant, power steering fluid on the ground? They pop the hood and visually inspect gasket areas for seeping or staining. And when they find a small seal leaking, they fix it immediately before it becomes a much more serious, much more expensive internal failure. A valve cover gasket replacement might cost $100 to $300. Ignoring it for 50,000 miles might mean a full engine rebuild. Catch the small leaks. Fix the small leaks. That's the habit. Habit number 1, they treat the car like a partner, not a tool. This last habit is the one that ties everything together. And it might sound philosophical, but it's actually incredibly practical. People who get 300,000 miles out of their cars have a different relationship with the vehicle. They don't think of it as a disposable appliance that gets replaced when it becomes inconvenient. They think of it as a long-term partnership, something they're investing in, maintaining, and protecting because it serves them. That mindset shift changes behavior in dozens of small ways. They keep the interior clean, not for vanity, but because moisture, crumbs, and debris in the cabin can cause mold, damage electronics, and create odors that are nearly impossible to fully remove. They protect the paint, not because they're obsessed with appearance, but because paint protects the metal beneath it from rust. A car with failing, peeling paint is a car that's rusting. They keep a small log, whether it's a notes app, a spreadsheet, or a paper notebook in the glove box, of every service performed. Oil change dates and mileages, tire rotations, fluid flushes. When they hear a noise, they write it down with the mileage and conditions. This log becomes invaluable when something goes wrong, and it's a massive asset if they ever sell the car. Documented maintenance history can add thousands of dollars to resale value. They plan maintenance proactively. They know what's due in the next 10,000 miles and budget for it, so they're never caught off guard by an expense and never tempted to delay a service because they didn't anticipate the cost. And most importantly, they just pay attention. Not obsessively, not anxiously, but consistently. A few minutes of attention per week is worth more to a car's longevity than any single expensive service you could buy. The car knows when it's being cared for. The wear curves show it. The maintenance records prove it. And the odometer, ticking past 200,000, past 250,000, pushing toward 300,000 and beyond, is the ultimate evidence.